Hello everyone, it's Todd here with Zilla Fantasy Elite. We're going to go over your Week 11 DFS information here. It is Thursday, so I'm going to get this video out a little bit early. I'm going to be busy and doing some stuff in my personal life on Friday and Saturday, so I won't be able to wait that long. Before we get on with the show, I just want to say, hit that subscribe button. That certainly helps me out. If you enjoy these adjusted line play metrics and think they're actually super useful, hit the subscribe and then click the bell so you get the updates every time I post a new video. You'll be able to tell when those come out, the waiver wire videos, especially if you're looking at somebody to grab off the waivers, and then these DFS videos, which I put out every week. Hopefully we can win some money together there. So hit the subscribe button on YouTube and the bell if you are interested in seeing when my videos drop. And then head on over to Twitter. I do post on there some DFS advice and kind of get in communication with some of the other DFS names in the industry, I guess. So head over there. It's at Toddzilla1337. That is my Twitter handle. Certainly give me a follow on there and hit me up. I am pretty social on there if you are interacting with me. So that's the Twitter account, and then especially Facebook. If you guys want some of the behind-the-scenes stuff or a lot more of the social aspect where I'm going to maybe post lineups or kind of go over some more game theory stuff, go to Facebook. It's Zilla Fantasy Elite on Facebook to get the more in-depth and more behind-the-scenes stuff for this particular YouTube channel. So those are the three ones. Subscribe, Twitter at Toddzilla1337, and then go to Facebook, Zilla Fantasy Elite. With that being said, let's get our Week 11 DFS podcast underway here. It's just going to be a weird week. I'm going to let you know in general. There's only 2 games this week with Vegas implied totals over 50 points this week. We have Atlanta at New Orleans at 51, and then the highest one on the main slate here is Green Bay at Indianapolis at 51.5. Coming off of like 3 or 4 straight weeks where we had 5, 6, 7 games sometimes above 50, and a lot of them in the mid-50s. It's just going to be a different week. I don't think there's going to be any super easy correlated games where you're just sitting there smashing or stacking 1 or 2 games and getting a ton of pieces from those games and then filling in other ones as you see fit or where the matchups may dictate. It's just going to be a weird week where I think you're going to be picking and choosing certain people, and you might get a weird week where nothing necessarily correlates that much, or you get lucky where you decide, I'm going to pick this game and kind of stack that, and then that one is the one that goes off. So it'll just be an interesting week in general, especially at tight end on FanDuel where we have Taysom Hill and the situation in New Orleans, which we'll get to here in a little bit. All right, so the first matchup we have here, Cincinnati at Washington. The biggest thing of note here is the Washington defense. We have the pass rush at 2nd, Cincinnati's offensive pass protection at 27th. Washington should be able to get after the quarterback pretty easily there, which means Cincinnati isn't going to have a ton of time to throw, which Joe Burrow's kind of used to. Zach Taylor's been doing a really good job about getting quicker underneath routes, so I don't know if it's going to affect them as much, but look for those Cincinnati low ADOT targets like Tyler Boyd, and Drew Sample is possibly in play this week. He might stay in the block and help out with the pass rush there, but if he doesn't, I could see him being targeted quite a bit. Washington does give up quite a few tight end points, so keep that in mind. But Tyler Boyd, Drew Sample has the low ADOT targets, and Higgins is always in play there. Burrow could be a sneaky play here. Washington, even though their pass rush is pretty good, they're just not a good team in general. I think Cincinnati might be able to move the ball on them, and Burrow you could see with some sneaky upside in this game. I might get him in a lineup or 2. And then on the Washington side, we have their offensive pass protection 26. Alex Smith, I don't think he's necessarily used to having that much time back there, but Cincinnati's pass rush is 30th. Give Alex Smith some time. I think he's going to build some confidence like you saw at the end of the Detroit game last week. I think he could be in play here, and then with him having more time, it's just going to lead to the guys that are going to be open, which is probably Terry McLaurin, and if you are going to run any sort of weird stack there, you could do Cam Sims as well, but McLaurin be the one that I'd be looking for. And then possibly Gibson at running back there. Cincinnati's defensive adjusted line yards against the run is 31st. Washington towards the low end on running the ball, but I think Washington is just going to be able to move the ball in general, and they may have quite a few scoring opportunities on Cincinnati, so Gibson would be in play here. And then if you're looking for, if you think Washington's going to get after the quarterback, which is most likely the case, and they're not always going to have these underneath routes open, which could potentially be the case as well. Washington defense obviously in play. They're right in that mid-range where I'm picking up in a lot of my FanDuel lineups anyway. And that one is a 46.5 point total. It's kind of one of the ho-hum ones there. And we have Washington as 1.5 point home favorites against Cincinnati. That one does have some sneaky upside. Just be aware of that. Atlanta and New Orleans, this is the second highest Vegas point total on the slate, 51 points, with New Orleans favored by 5. We're looking at the New Orleans pass attack here. So offensive pass protection 4th. Atlanta is coming in at 29th at generating pressure on the quarterback. So adjusted sack rate there, pretty poor. New Orleans should have plenty of time to throw. Drew Brees, 5 cracked ribs. Some other collapsed lung issues, so he's out for the next few weeks. At quarterback is going to be Jameis Winston. If you're going to be looking at stacking any New Orleans pass attack, he is an option. Just know that Taysom Hill gets in there around the red zone, and he could vulture touchdowns from anyone on here. He could run one in, vulturing from Kamara or even Jameis Winston or Michael Thomas or Jared Cook, any of these passing game options that you're looking at, he could vulture. But you also have Taysom Hill as the quarterback. I wouldn't be starting him at quarterback in any of my lineups, but if you're playing on FanDuel, he is listed as a tight end. I'm going to be getting him into a few of my lineups on FanDuel just because he does have mega touchdown upside. That's pretty much the only time he comes in is when they're within the 20 yards of the end zone. So he's a touchdown upside guy, which no Kelsey on the main slate, no Kittle anymore, no Waller on the main slate. We're pretty much out all of our top tight end guys. It's more of a punt position, and actually I think pretty much all of my tight ends are probably going to come from this game. It's either going to be Taysom Hill or it's going to be Hayden Hurst in a lot of my lineups this week. So Atlanta's side, you're going to look at the lower A-dot stuff. New Orleans, 4th on the pass rush. Atlanta's pass protection is just 20th, so it's a pretty big discrepancy there. New Orleans should be able to get after the quarterback, leading to the lower A-dot targets. I don't know if Ridley's going to be healthy to play, but looking at Russell Gage, Hayden Hurst, and possibly Zacchaeus Olamedia, however you pronounce that guy's name, those would be the lower A-dot guys that I'd be looking at, and Julio's obviously always in play if you think that is a option, but the defense on Atlanta possibly if you're looking at Jameis Winston, if you think he's going to air it out and continue to make the same mistakes that he did while he was in Tampa Bay under Sean Payton in a different offensive scheme here, they are certainly in play there, especially if you're punting and wanting a super cheap one. They are in play there. So Atlanta at New Orleans. If you're going to be running that pass game, I'd be looking pretty much just at Thomas, or most likely is just going to be Alvin Kamara. But the interesting thing is Alvin Kamara actually didn't practice. He's got a foot issue, and it's Thursday, and he didn't practice. So that's a little concerning. Latavius Murray would be filling in his stead if that happens, and he's probably cheaper. He'd become a pretty good guy, and just based on volume alone, especially for your cash game lineups. And then Jared Cook at tight end. If you're interested in that, Atlanta is kind of a funneled tight end defense, so keep that in mind. On to the next one, we have Pittsburgh's at Jacksonville. It's a 47.5 point Vegas total. Pittsburgh 10-point favorites. And based off the adjusted line play here, we have Pittsburgh's pass attack. They are number 1 in offensive pass protection. Jacksonville dead last in the pass rush on defense, so they should have plenty of time. And then if you look at their run blocking, Pittsburgh's one of the worst, second to the last there. Jacksonville one of the best at stopping the run. I don't think James Conner is going to be moving the ball on the ground. I think Pittsburgh is going to dominate this game through the air continually, and they're not going to find a whole lot of success on the ground. Even if they're up, they're still going to be passing it and trying to get those third downs and whatever else, and that's how they're going to move the ball. Big Ben certainly in play here, Deontay Johnson in play, Chase Claypool in play, Juju in play, and Eric Ebron at tight end in play if that's where you're looking. The unfortunate thing, there's nothing really to run it back here. I think Jacksonville is going to be down, but their best bet is running the ball. There's 6, as you can see there, in offensive run blocking, but Pittsburgh, one of the best against the run. I just don't see Jacksonville putting up a whole lot of points in this game, and the 10 points, the Vegas spread, I might bet that Pittsburgh's going to win by more than 10 on this, just based off of the adjusted line play report, but nobody on the Jacksonville side that I'd be looking at as far as a DFS lineup. Pittsburgh's probably not going to have any run backs if you are stacking that game. If you do, I guess you could try James Robinson if you think he's going to get any sort of run game going there. New England at Houston. This is a very interesting one. 48-point total there for Vegas, so one of the higher ones on the week. Basically, we have New England's run game. New England's third in offensive line run blocking. Houston's dead last in the adjusted line yards against the run. Absolutely terrible defense against the run. New England, that's what they do very well. Be looking at Damian Harris and Rex Burkhead. One or both of them are going to be smash plays this week. And I just think that's the way that New England's going to move the ball, and they're going to try to just grind this game out. It's going to be a quick game, though. The 48-point total, I'm not sure if it's going to get there. Houston, like their opposing offenses run some of the least amount of plays in the league. Houston doesn't run very many themselves, so I think there's just not going to be a whole ton of, fantasy opportunities in this game as they run the clock out on the New England side. And then on the Houston side, you got the pass attack there. They should have a little bit more time than usual. They're 31st in offensive pass protection, but surprisingly to a lot of people, New England's defense is pretty poor. 28th in defensive adjusted line yards against the run and 24th at generating pressure. I think Houston's going to have a little bit more time than usual to be able to pass the ball. If you think they're going to be running the ball in New England, you could certainly do the Duke Johnson route there. He's going to be getting the vast majority of volume. I just don't see the upside necessarily in this game being any sort of shootout. I think it's going to be a quick game. They're going to be running the clock on the New England side, and Houston probably efficiently moving the ball. Even if they do decide to run, they should still be able to have some success there. And it's just going to be the New England run game. Cam Newton possibly, if you're interested in him having some opportunities to score some touchdowns. Philadelphia at Cleveland, next one on here. We have a 45.5-point total. One of the lower ones on the slate, but not that far off from a lot of them. Cleveland there is 3.5-point favorites. According to adjusted line play, there's nothing really here other than Philadelphia, maybe the lower A-dot. Their offensive line isn't very good. Cleveland can generate some pressure. They're kind of middle of the pack there, and they have Myles Garrett there on the outside, possibly generating some pressure. Otherwise, going back to last week, there was 3 games where it's basically the adjusted line report wasn't suggesting anything. I said there are high totals on these games, but the adjusted line play report didn't really highlight anything that said this way or that way. And with that being said, if we go back and look at last week, a lot of those games where they were just nothing being suggested on this adjusted line play report, it actually ended up just going to the people that you would expect. DeAndre Hopkins had a huge game, and we saw Murray have a huge game. It's kind of the people that you would expect to have fantasy success on their teams, having the fantasy success when there's kind of stalemates here at the adjusted line play report. So when that's the case, Cleveland run game might be good, and take your best bets there. Otherwise, I'm probably going to be avoiding this for the most part in DFS. I just don't see anything of importance here, especially with the low total. And we have Detroit at Carolina next. We have Carolina's run game, so they're 13th in offensive run blocking. Detroit 29th. They just get ran on and ran on and ran on. Christian McCaffrey is not going to play this week. Sounds like Teddy Bridgewater also not going to play. So whoever they have in at quarterback, I'm not sure, but it looks like this is going to be a Mike Davis week. I think no matter if they're up or down, Mike Davis is probably going to have a pretty solid week. He should be able to move the ball on them, on Detroit, kind of like he was earlier in the year. That'd be my biggest play here for the Carolina side. They also have 19th in pass protection. Not very good, but Detroit also can't get after the quarterback very well either. So maybe like a Curtis Samuel if you think he's going to get in the run game without CMC there, and then also get some of the passing game options. I just think he might end up working more with some of these backup quarterbacks when they're going through practices and whatnot. So he could be somebody that's kind of a sneaky play this week. And then on the Detroit side, we don't really have anything of concern. Offensive run blocking stalemated with Carolina's defense. Same with the pass protection. When that's the case, kind of just go, like I said, as a stalemate, go with the guys that you would expect to get fantasy points. Sounds like Galladay limited, so he might not play with his hip. Amendola might not play with his injury. And then we have Stafford with some thumb issues. So they might lean heavily on their run game this week. And you'd expect Swift probably to have a decent amount of volume there with the way that he's played the last 2 weeks. And with that being said, Carolina's run defense seems to give up a lot of points, at least touchdowns. So Swift could be somebody that has that sneaky upside in this game with that 48.5 point total there. And Carolina favored by 1.5. Swift, somebody that catches a lot of balls out of the backfield too, especially if they go to a new quarterback. He's more likely going to check it down. So keep that in mind. I think with the third highest slate total here, we have Tennessee at Baltimore at 49 points. Baltimore 6.5 point favorites. And this is one of those stalemates. Pretty bad on the offensive pass protection and pass rush for Baltimore and Tennessee. Definitely a good pass protection for Tennessee, but Baltimore also able to get after the quarterback. Tennessee's run blocking is the biggest discrepancy here outside of this pass rush for Baltimore giving a little bit of time. I think Tennessee is going to be able to run the ball in Baltimore. Baltimore hasn't been absolute lights out against the run necessarily, and they have Derrick Henry and a good offensive running game. So I think, again, the stalemates, you'd expect your fantasy producers to have the better game, so I think Derrick Henry is going to do that. And on Baltimore, I think this is a week where he's going to have more time, he being Lamar Jackson. He's going to have more time just because Tennessee just is not good at getting after the quarterback. I think Lamar Jackson's going to have time. He's been hearing all the complaints about how he's not accurate and stuff, so I think this is a get-right week for Lamar Jackson. Don't quote me on this, but this could be his blow-up week finally, and I could see him having a solid pass game here, and who's going to be the biggest beneficiary of that if he's got some extra time? I think he's going to find Hollywood Brown at least a few times for some big gainers on this, so look for Lamar Jackson. If you're going to stack him, do the Hollywood Brown thing. I think he could have a solid game there. And really, it's just a slight edge on the run game for Tennessee, and then Baltimore should have more time than they're used to. Otherwise, it's a stalemate. So pick the guys that you would expect to score fantasy points in there, and that's probably what's going to happen for that particular game. Next one, New York Jets at the Los Angeles Chargers. 47-point total here. 28 points implied from the Chargers end, so 4 touchdowns. On this particular game, we're looking at the Chargers air attack. Pass protection offense, middle of the road there at 15th. Jets don't generate a whole lot of pressure against the quarterback. That's a bonus. I think we're going to have Herbert having more time than he's used to with some of these better pass rush defenses, so give him some time. Let those deep routes go. The Jets are absolutely bad in the secondary anyway, so Herbert's in a smash spot here. And we're looking at all of the air options. We're looking at Keenan Allen. We're looking at Mike Williams. We're looking at Jalen Guyton. I think those last two guys, Williams and Guyton, could be tournament-winning upside guys this week, especially if you see Guyton get one of those patented 70-yard touchdown bombs. I wouldn't be surprised if he has another one in this game. And then also Hunter Henry at tight end is an option. Herbert, one of my more favorite quarterbacks on the slate this week. With this being said, on the offensive pass protection side, otherwise, I don't think they're going to run the ball a whole lot. Chargers 18th in offensive run blocking. Jets surprisingly good at stopping the run. So Kalen Ballage, I know a lot of people were high on him for the waivers this week, but just be careful. I would temper your expectations about his upside in this game. It is possible he has a low efficiency game where maybe he has 18 rushes for 40 yards, but then he falls in the end zone twice just because the Chargers should be scoring opportunities quite a bit there. On to the next one here. We have Miami at Denver. Really the only thing of note here, mostly stalemates, but looking at Miami's defense, they are 13th at generating pressure, and Denver is 25th in offensive pass protection. You have a banged-up Drew Lock or a backup coming in. Miami's secondary is very good, and it looks like they're starting to generate a little bit of a pass rush here. If their coverage sacks, I don't know, but Miami could be in line for quite a few turnovers here. They are in play, and it's really the only thing of note I have for this game. Other than Denver 16th in adjusted line yards, Miami's not very good in the offensive run blocking aspect. I know Salvin Ahmed was a very popular waiver wire ad this week as well. He can catch the ball, but just be aware he might be a little bit capped on that upside with the Denver's defense there. They used to be a lot better. They had an interior lineman go down, and then ever since then, like the last 3 or 4 weeks after that, Denver's been more susceptible on the ground. So it could be a Salvin Ahmed. It has a solid game there, but just be aware of Denver. That is a adjusted line play metric, but I think Denver is going to start getting worse and worse here against the run compared to what they were at the beginning of the year. Next game, Dallas at Minnesota, 48 points. The Miami-Denver game was 45, if you didn't know. It's one of the lowest ones, if not the lowest on the slate this week. Dallas at Minnesota, 48 points, one of the higher ones, unfortunately, at 48 points only. This is a very interesting game. This is the only one that I find super easily stackable just because there's mismatches on both sides for the offense. We look at the Dallas run game. They are 10th in offensive run blocking. Minnesota playing better on defense, but still 27th in adjusted line yards there. I think Zeke is in play. Pollard, a sneaky play. He has looked more explosive than Zeke, and he's been getting quite a few touches. He's probably bottom dollar. I don't know what he is on the sites, but he's probably super cheap. If you're looking at an absolute punt play in a tournament, Pollard would be the guy that maybe rips off a screenplay for 40 yards and a touchdown and gives you that upside on a minimum salary type guy. And then on the Minnesota side, second offensive run blocking, Dallas 30th against the run. Dalvin Cook, a smash play according to the adjusted line play report here. He's always kind of a smash play because Minnesota's run game is so strong, and then a lot of their opponents that they're playing have been really weak. So Dalvin Cook should score quite a few points here. The problem is he's massively up there in the salary this week, so he's CMC level of salary. He doesn't quite get the pass game looks that Christian McCaffrey does, so if they get behind in the game, he'll get some pass work, but he's not going to get you like the 14 targets like you're used to a McCaffrey looking for. To justify that price, he's going to have to really produce like 30 points worth of stuff, so you're looking at like 150 yards. And then getting another 12, so 150 yards, 2 touchdown minimum to kind of 3x you on his salary this week. Certainly capable of outproducing that against Dallas's defense. Just be aware he's really expensive. Fortunately, it's one of those weeks where there's a lot of cheap options that you can get, and you can fit them into your lineups fairly easily and still be stacking people like Ben Roethlisberger in the Pittsburgh pass attack. So keep that in mind. Dalvin Cook should have a good game. Just don't know if he's going to justify the price that he is on FanDuel anyway. And then we have the last game here on the slate, Green Bay at Indianapolis, the highest total on the slate at 51.5. Green Bay actually 2.5-point favorites here on the road. At least it was when I made this on Tuesday. And really, the Green Bay pass attack is what you're going to want to look at here. Offensive pass protection is third. Indianapolis does have a solid defense, but they are just middle of the road at the pass rush aspect of the adjusted line play. So Aaron Rodgers is in play here, I think. And Davante Adams, he didn't practice for whatever reason Wednesday or Thursday, which isn't good. And then if he's back, look for him to have another solid game, just like he always does, kind of like Michael Thomas last year. And then Allen Lazard should be coming back from his injury, although it sounds like he's been limited still this week in his practices. If both of those guys are playing, I'm looking at Davante Adams and Allen Lazard. This is a situation that you're probably going to have to look at in Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon before kickoff, just to make sure who's in, who's out. If Adams is out, look at Lazard and MVS at having solid games. I would be heavily leaning Lazard because I think Rodgers would go that route. And then they might lean on Aaron Jones in the run game there. Not on the run game, but in the pass attack, just kind of using him as an outlet along with MVS and Lazard. I don't know if Adams and Lazard are both out. I'd be questioning the Green Bay pass attack after that. I don't think Rodgers trusts a lot of those guys, and they don't really have anybody other than Tonyan possibly, or Tonyan would be an option there. And on the Indy side, their run blocking offense is getting slightly better. They were terrible, and they still kind of are. But Green Bay, they're able to be ran on. The Indianapolis running back situation is very murky. Any of these three backs could probably have a full workload. Jonathan Taylor, if you want to go that route, he's got the highest upside probably of anybody if he does get the volume. And Green Bay still sucks. He could, if he figures stuff out, he could bust off a long one there and maybe get some confidence and get his yards per carry up in this game. But it's not something I'd be counting on. Nyheim Hines would be another option in the run game there. And I think that's it for the slate. Kind of like I said, it's going to be a weird week. Not one that I'm particularly like gung-ho about with getting in some of these matchups. I think I'm just going to be stacking a pass attack for quarterback, wide receiver, and then just kind of pulling pieces here and there from some of these games. None of them are super stackable. Even in the Dallas-Minnesota game, you could build a narrative where Dallas actually gets up, or Minnesota's defense is so bad that Andy Dalton and their pass game come to life. They are getting offensive linemen back. That's about the only game that I see super stackable besides the Atlanta-New Orleans game, and then Cincinnati-Washington, New England-Houston. But it's just going to be a weird week. Do your best. Hopefully the adjusted line play report will help you out on some of that stuff. As always, give me a subscribe. Click the bell so you get the updates when these videos go live. Over at Twitter, at Toddzilla1337. Give me a follow. Hit me up on there just to chat. If you have any questions about DFS advice, I can give you it there. Or go to Facebook, Zilla Fantasy Elite. I also am active on there and very willing to answer questions and talk on there. It's a little bit easier than Twitter and YouTube for sure. So thanks for watching, guys. That's it. Week 11 DFS, adjusted line play report. Good luck. Let's go win some money together. Bye.